Okay, welcome, atheists, agnostics, skeptics, freethinkers, whatever you like to call yourself, you are welcome here. We call ourselves an atheist church because we'll never hear anything supernatural talked about from the podium. So today we are talking about the book Wishcraft, How to Get What You Really Want in Life, and it's partly a job search manual, but it's also partly a craft, the most exciting and interesting life for yourself that you can imagine kind of manual. So she also, it's written by Barbara Sher, and she also wrote the book I Could Do Anything If I Only Knew What It Was. And so the books are kind of about finding your life work and finding yourself, if you define yourself at least partly by what you do. So I'm going to just kind of take you through her process. So she says to first start off by just thinking about who you are. And most people, when they're asked to do that, they come up with a list of statistical information. Something like, I'm female, white, Catholic, about age 50. And then they might start listing out their skills or jobs they've had in the past. But that's not very useful information for creating a life unless you already love the life that you have. It doesn't really matter where you're starting from. It only matters if you know what you want to do, then you can figure out what the skills are that you would have if you had the job. So what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? That's a better question. And she suggests that you feel free to come up with many childhood-style goals. So you can think about what resonates with you and you can dabble with them. So things like, I love to throw tea parties. I can imagine myself being a cowboy. Or I'm a collector with a dusty treasure box full of gleaming jewels. And from these dreams, a person can become an event planner, a seasonal ranch hand, a national park ranger, or an antiques dealer, or an estate liquidator. So the idea is that you might not even know that your dream job exists as an actual job. So don't think about actual jobs that you already know about. Think about fantasy jobs, and then later we'll try to figure out how to get there. So ask yourself questions like, can I get paid for putting together fantastical tea parties? Yeah. And it turns out actually there are people who do. So she also suggests that you kind of time travel back to your childhood and think about things that you wanted to do that along the way you gave up. Think about what you loved to do as a child before someone told you that it was impractical. Maybe you had some special qualities at that time of life that you never really developed. Did you love to make things with your hands or tell stories? Did you like to organize other children to put on a show? Or did you like spending time in solitude up in a treehouse, observing life from afar? Maybe when you were a child, your unique talents were noticed, but as you got older, you were told, you got a message that they weren't valuable. Like, it's fine to make up songs or draw when you're age 6, but by 16, if you weren't, a soprano or a protege artist, you were told that those things were not useful for life. And you were told you had to specialize. So if you were a child who was good at writing stories, or maybe today's version would be coding, you might have been suddenly given the message that you could only do one thing and you had to focus on that. Other things had to be dropped. Or were you allowed to pursue side interests and encouraged or were you encouraged to limit your focus? Did you feel as a child or a young adult that people in your family were secretly waiting for you to fail? Or even worse, wanting you to fail? Were you allowed to complain when things were hard without being encouraged to quit? Did you imagine as a child when you made a giant mess in the kitchen, were you praised anyway for baking? Or were you encouraged to basically not do that again? Were you bailed out without reproach? And if you were doing things what you should have been doing, exploring, there would have been times when you would have made some mistakes. And the question is, were you allowed to save face when that happened? Or were you criticized? So let's say that you went on a road trip at 17 and your car broke down and you needed someone to wire you money to get your car fixed. Was your wanderlust appreciated, or were you sort of swatted down for doing something risky that didn't pan out? If you took a summer off from school and tried acting and you didn't get a job, did you feel like people were laughing at you behind your back? Or were you completely encouraged? So in some section of the book, she basically just says, you know, a lot of us were really shut down and afraid to try new things. And so she's a personal coach, and she works with people about why it might be that you're shut down. And then ultimately, if you did succeed, did you feel that people were rooting for your success, or did you feel that someone actually was jealous of you when you succeeded? Can you imagine yourself being as successful as you want to be and still have people being really proud of you? So starting to think about the things that you love to do is a starting point. And she tells you to make a list of all the things you remember doing as a child that you loved to do. Or even, you know, recently, a few years ago, things you used to do that you don't do anymore, including going bike riding, hiking, whatever it was. And then think about when's the last time you did that thing. And does it require working with others? Is it physical work? Is it mental work? And start trying to quantify what it is about those things that you enjoy doing. So one of the things that I really enjoy doing is, one time I had a job decorating a house of horrors for a charity event. And it was something that was really fun for me. And I still love to put on events, as people here at church know. So imagine what would your ideal day be like. Imagine what your ideal environment would be like. And if you got to do the things that are gratifying for you, what would the details of your day be? What would the details of your environment be? And identify which of these elements are indispensable, or which are optional, which are extra. And interestingly enough, the things that are the extras often give you some clues as well, really good information. So imagine you have a coffee stand, and as part of this visioning process, you're serving donuts that have neon-colored icing. So the neon-colored donuts might be a staging point for a brand which is fun or which is minimalist, and minimalist and fun then become some guiding words that you might think about crafting this life. When you imagine a big, fat, juicy future, use this process to pick out what turns you on. And then work backwards from there. What's your long-haul goal? What's your interim goal? What are you willing to do tomorrow? What are you willing to do today? Okay, then the next thing she suggests you do is assemble what she calls a brain trust, a mastermind group. And in this book, she calls it the barn raising, but it's basically one idea, which is a group of friends that you can talk to about your dreams. Maybe they know someone who can get you help. An informational interview, you could shadow somebody while they're doing a job that you're interested in learning more about. So start assembling the team whose collective knowledge is greater than your own. And this is a little odd, but especially in the other book, she talks about that your team can even have imaginary members. Yes, really. If you want to get involved with politics, you might think of a favorite historical figure and start reading about their life and gathering their advice. Actually, today, almost anything you could imagine wanting to do, you can find information online about someone who's already started doing that. And imagine a cast of helpers and the advice that they might give you. But you don't also have to have only imaginary ones. You can get your real friends together as well. She really suggests that you try not to go back to school, because she points out that for a lot of people it's a kind of a delaying tactic. They don't know what they want to do. They want to change careers. Going back to school is kind of a safe way to put that transition on hold. Now, sometimes you'll need to go back to school, but she suggests you try to at least get started without having going back to school. Can you learn on your own? Can you volunteer and get some experience doing it? Can you shadow someone or help them out in an unpaid experience? And then, can you utilize some of the skills you currently have to help someone in exchange for them helping you and training you? Do you have something you can trade for something you need? Then she suggests that what you do is you write every possible obstacle that you can think of that would stop you from doing this thing that you want to do, and then start trying to come up with ways to handle those obstacles. Make a flow chart. And the flow chart is going to be really big. So hang it on your wall. And this will allow you to kind of hold it all in your mind at once. And when you can start coming up with obstacles that weren't on the list, add them to the flow chart. And that way, that what will happen is you'll basically be able to see, oh yes, I knew there were going to be obstacles and I have a path around them. So this now, from your flow chart wall, she suggests creating a whole planning wall with different boxes. Your long-term vision, your interim goals, and then the action steps that you will take tomorrow, and the action steps you will take tonight before bedtime. So she does have her, in one of the books she suggests you make a vision board, which seems like a very 1980s, 1990s thing to do. That's about the time that this book was written. And I would add, if I were going to update her book, that Pinterest, Instagram, and other sources like that are also ways to feed your imagination. She suggests that you make a list of friends that you can make what's called booster calls. Just a 3-minute call where you check in and say, yes, I'm working on blank, and thank you for being one of the supportive people in my life. So she suggests that you identify with your reading and your research and your discussions and your brain trust and your shadowing and your volunteers, all of the steps that would be on the path up to this goal. And then you start thinking about building your resume. So all of this before you start thinking about, if I were to do that job, what needs to be on the resume. And so update your resume and send it out there, especially to your brain trust people, your booster friends people, because she cites some statistics about that a lot of jobs, especially opportunities, come from connections with people who you already know. And that this is her process for creating a life that you really want. So let's talk about, interestingly enough, I got these books recommended to me many years ago, probably 15 years ago or something, as part of a job search. And in rereading this book, I was surprised at how little it is about a job, but it's also about just like anything you want to do, even like starting a new church/religion. You basically follow the same process of just start thinking about what would it be like, and after you've got your big fat juicy brainstorm out there, then you create your flow chart, then you start breaking it down into the pieces. And always leverage as much support from friends as possible. So I will end the way I always do, which is that atheists believe in good, because good works in non-mysterious ways.